What is up? So you're watching this video because you want to have punchier drums, and there's many ways to achieving that, but this is one of the ways I have achieved that, and I think pretty easily. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm soloing what I have working with the drum group, so you can hear the full drum group. And then I'm gonna go through, turn everything off, and then play it so you can really see, okay, what it sounds like after and what it sounds like before I even started. And then you'll realize, like, okay, I too can make punchy drums too. So there's nothing magical going on. It's just pretty basic stuff. So here's the drum loop. Also, this is the project I used for, as you can see, Trap Song Course project. And if you want to take this course, the link will be in the description. It's part of our Tarant on Demand series, and we were working on filming a bunch of courses, but we do have a few courses up. There's 30-day music marketing plan. There's our Ableton intro course, and as well as this trap course. For now, we're working on future bass, hybrid trap, melodic dubstep, and a bunch more stuff. The list goes on, but that's the near future recordings and courses we'll be putting up. So check out Tarant on Demand if you want to take this trap course and learn how to make this. But this video is on how to make punchy drums. So those are the drums. I'm gonna go ahead, turn off everything that I did to process these drums, and be right back. Alright, so I turned everything off, and volume wise, they're pretty much the same, but you're gonna hear they're not as crisp or not as clean. They're a little muddy, nothing's really working together. And yeah, so here's what that same loop sounds like now. So, it's the same beat, it's about the same volume, it's just not alive. And that's what I'm going to show you, getting that punch and crispness to your drum loop. So, let's start with the basic. And what I did was, on the group, you put a saturator just a little bit, and you turn that drive up. We ended up using soft sine, but sometimes I use analog clip. And the mid-side EQ, you want to roll off all the stereo and the lows, so that way it has room for the sub to sit in the middle, the kick to sit in the middle, the cymbals and nothing else is playing right there. That's for the stereo. And as well as when we start layering other elements with it, that gets it more clean and ready to start layering other stuff with it. So that's what I did to the whole drum group. Now obviously you're going to start with a nice, I'm going to turn that off for now. We're going to start with a nice kick and snare. What I wanted to do was tighten them up with this transient shaper master thing. And it basically, say this is the full, like, snare. It's like a fade. When you pull the sustain, and it's tightening up that snare sample. And you could tighten it up all the way, or you could add some attack to it. I just kept 1% attack, so you could add more attack to it, so it's tightening it up, but it still has that attack to it. It's not shortening the attack. So that's all you could set up. All I really did was just shorten it and gave it 1% on the attack just to keep the initial, hit right there cutting through. I didn't want to cut that off. So I shortened it up, and now it's you can really notice the tightening up on the hook little snare fill and some of the other snares. But then the snare was a little loud, so I wanted to, duck those frequencies. I'm like, okay, the kick sounds great. The snare sounds too loud. What frequencies from the snare are sticking out? So before and after. So like the beef of the snares are still playing through, but we're just taming those highs because I wanted those not to stand out so much. So we did that with the Nova. That is a free thing. If you watch our free VST plugin 2017 video, that is part of it. So then you go on to utility, and we just pull them in a little bit. We want that snare and kick a little more centered, not too drastically, because it's going to start creating weird phasey things when we flatten it down to 0. So just a little bit. And then limiter, you gotta catch those peaks and make it more consistent. That will help you with your mix down. You notice I'm not doing it too crazy. I'm literally just catching those peaks to make it more consistent. And then comes in the sub kick. So the sub kick's going to create a lot of issues with your kick and snare. So how we got around that was, first of all, limiting the sub, and then adding a compression, which is sidechain, with the kick and snare. So if that has any issues with the snare, it's saying nope, sorry, or the sub, it's saying nope, sub, sorry, we're playing. You're gonna have to duck down a bit right now while we play, then you can come back in. So let's play it without this on. So really pay attention to the way the kick and the sub relates. So we turn the limiter on. Notice it's not clipping these high ones. We really wanted to tame these low notes so they're at a more consistent, And then we're not dramatically squashing it to make it similar. We're just a little bit, we're catching the high peaks, flattening it out a bit so it's a little closer to this when the high notes have a little less sub, but it is still a drastic change. We just made it just a little more smoother when it goes up to those notes. And then at that point, this almost feels, more energetic, bigger. So that's one little trick when you're using two different notes from like a big gap. You want to, just contain them a little bit. And then the compressor now listens to the kick when we turn this on. And then watch how much we're just reducting. And the ratio, attack, and then auto. So now that kick is definitely always going to be hitting on top. That sub's not going to have a problem with it. And any of the little rumble of the snare again is going to come through over the sub too. So, and you really don't notice it if you just listen. There's just that slight little gapping from the kick to the sub now instead of like them flopping together. So it creates a little gap and more emphasis on the kick and snare. So another way to bring that basic Well, first let me do the basic loop because this drum beat won't make sense when I do it. So I added the cymbals, which is no processing. It was already a pretty good crash, and I just, followed the kick basically. Yeah, the trap ride thing. And basically, the reason for this was to make those kicks stand out and be more dramatic. So, use other parts of like the cymbals and stuff to make your drum beat, the main bones, stand out and be more impactful. And that was the reason for that. And then obviously the hi-hats you want to put in there to give it that. And you notice I'm pitching them around a bit, giving them just a couple milliseconds here and there off the grid, and just giving them a more, it just sounds better. I don't know how to explain it. Like, you just start pitching them around like 5 up, 5 down, and then start going back to 0. And you'll just notice, like, okay, that actually sounds better than when it's at 0, and you just leave it there. And there's really no secret besides move them around and just listen. And then the clap, progression. Alright, so now we get to the drum beats. And this is a contact drum kit, and you just write it out. And you guys probably didn't even know that was there. Maybe you just noticed the crash from it. So let's turn it on, turn everything off, and just turn on the EQ. So listen. So we're scooping out the low end, making sure it doesn't interfere with our main beat, and as well as giving it all the low mids out and keeping those in the mono, and then keeping that more highs and mids for the stereo, give it a more different space, so they're not with all these drums, but then they're layered. Then I wanted to squash it out a bit. I didn't want anything again to stand out really besides that crash over the beats. Just little peaks I'm catching. And then you see that crash is much louder, so I wanted to tame it for the other crash because they're two different little pads from the drum set, so they're really not the same sample. But if you kind of compress them to the same volume, they sound pretty much the same, but they're different. And that's a way to make punchy or fatter drums. Same but different sounds. And then we did more of the side chain with the compression and stuff with the main beat, so that these, again, we want the main kick and snare to say, hey, no, duck under me. I'm playing right here. You could come in after me. And now let's put the kick and snare on. Let's turn this off for now. So now the kick and snare is back on top. Let's start adding everything back in that I showed you. You could hear every element. It's loud. Every element's loud, but that kick and snare remains on top. Now, this is how you really spice it up and make it nice and fat. So Ableton's being weird right now and it's not loading it. There it is. Oh, disappeared. Now it's gone. There it is. Now it's gone. So let me zoom in so you can see what the hell it is. It is a stab. It was like an effects loop, and I chopped these little bits from it and then put some fades on it. And that's all it is. It's just that duplicated out. But then when you add it to everything, so just the kick and snare. And that is my secrets to, well, they're really not secrets. It's pretty easy. I hope now you're able to have fat, punchy drums as well. I didn't hold anything back. As you see, this was just straight from the project. I turned them off, turned them on, showed you what they did. They're all little details that add up into the full beat being what it is. But you see how I was able to tell you why I did everything and what it did? If you can't do that to your song, don't do the processing. Unless you're sound designing, that you're free to do whatever because that's sound designing. But we're like trying to make it sound good now. We already did the sound designing. I made that sub with, just messing around. The sub's made now. I messed around and made these drum loops. Everything's there. The messing around's done. Now we need to strategically start doing things to make the beat full. So remember that. After the messing around's done, you have your pieces. You need to start actually strategically doing things. If you don't know what you're doing, you could easily do more harm than you are doing good because your brain's going to get full, louder, better. As you see, they were basically the same volume, so you really can't tell unless you really pay attention to, okay, yeah, the kick and snare's not that on up front now, everything's drowning out. I could hear the volumes are less consistent, some things wash through, blah blah blah. The kick doesn't mesh with the sub, but when you add all those little details, now it stands out. The volume really doesn't matter. It's the matter of just turning this up a few dBs if it needs to be louder. So don't get fooled by louder is better. Really pay attention to what it's doing and know what you're doing. So making fatter, punchier drums, however you want to describe that, this is what I do, and that's how it's done. You could obviously use different methods. I'm not sure of what you know. Maybe you know some things I don't know, and you add that with what I showed you, and now you have even fatter, punchier drums. So I hope this was valuable to you. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Click that like button. And again, if you want to take this trap course, click the on-demand link and join. You can either take the course or join the VIP members for that monthly subscription. Thanks for watching. Peace.